Hey BookTube, how's it going? My name's Jackie, and if you're new to me and it's the first time you're seeing my face, hello, what's up? My name's Jackie, I sit on my floor, and I talk about books. So I hope that's why you're here, because that's what's going to be happening today. If you're not new to me, thank you for always tuning in and the continued support. I really do appreciate it. So today for you, I have my first weekly wrap-up of the new year. It's already time for that. Now, granted, there's only a few days of this year on this because this does include the days from December 29th and January 4th. So we do get a little bit of that crossover, but it's still the first weekly wrap up of the new year, guys. So if you'd like to find out how my year is starting off, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat, and let's talk in some books. Okay, so yes, week 1, December 29th through January 4th, and all my shenanigans in between. I'm happy to say I've completed some shit my first week, so 2025 is going off strong so far. Yes, we like this. Let's just keep this ball rolling. We're good. So we're going to talk about the very last book that I finished of 2024 and the very first book I finished of 2025. So let's just dig right in. The last book I completed of 2024 and the first book I completed in this week was Krampus by Bram, this bad boy right here. Okay, so let me just break this thing down because we got some shit to talk about, okay? This is a standalone. It's a holiday standalone, and it was on my 12 and 24 list back in 2024. That was a list of 12 books that I wanted to get read in 2024, and this is the last one I completed off of that list. I'll link my wrap up of my 12 and 24 right here. When I filmed it, I wasn't entirely done with this, but I did finish this literally New Year's Eve night. So this was officially the last book that I read in 2024. It does feature some adult graphic content with some body horror and gore, and then we also feature some tropes of murder and revenge in this book. Okay, little backstory. This is the second Bram book I've ever read, but it's the first one I ever bought. I read Slewfoot 2 years ago and I loved it. I love that book. So I was really, really excited about this one, and I still had a very good time with this. But I love Krampus. As you can see, my little Krampus guy right here, this is my little Krampus Funko Pop that my husband got for me one year for Christmas. I think my husband got this, or Lizzie got me this. I can't remember. One of my family members got me this little Krampus guy. But he sits on my shelf all the time because I love him. He's so cute. Look at his little devil eyes. They're so adorable. Next to my Coke Bear, because it's not Christmas, California Christmas without, the Coke Bear. And I'm originally from California, so there you go. Anyway, sorry. So I had really high hopes for this book. Did it meet those expectations of reading Slewfoot and then just kind of my love of Krampus? Yes and no. You see, this book, we follow our character of Jesse. And Jesse is a down-on-his-luck country singer. His wife has left him for the city chief of police, and the chief of police happens to be a total douchebag. Yeah, he is one of those cops you don't want on the payroll, okay? That kind of sucks, because my husband is in law enforcement, so it always bothers me when I read books that have negative law enforcement people, but I do know exists. And his character was utilized pretty fucking well. I'll give him that. But his wife is leaving him for the chief of police, who happens to be connected and corrupt. And Jesse does not believe in himself. He doesn't believe in his music. He is just down on his luck, down to his last bottom dollar. As he's going home, he comes across Santa's sack, the red sack that holds all the toys, and he thinks his luck has changed because he can pull things out of this sack. And he thinks, oh, great, I can finally be the man that my wife thought I was. I could be there for my daughter. I could stop being a failure. Turns out this sack brings out a lot more problems than it solves, because this sack at one point in time belonged to Krampus. Krampus, the Yule Lord, the spirit of Yule. And yeah, that's where our story takes off, is when he gets the sack and realizes, oh shit, this is not a blessing. This is actually kind of a curse. But then it turns to maybe it is. This book is a lot of duality, and I had a really good time with it. So let's just break into what worked. All right, so I love Bram's storytelling. I love the way this man tells a story. I love his dark, I love his dreary. He is the epitome of somebody who finds beautiful in darkness, and I love it. I also love his artwork. Brom is also an artist, and he does all the artwork for his books, and he does include them in here. You can go to his website and purchase them if you can ever catch them. But he does do his own artwork, and some of these things are just stunning. I will admit I liked Slewfoot's artwork a lot better, but this is still very, very nice. This is our character of Jesse that we're following. Okay, he's our main guy. But fantastic artwork. So not only is he extremely artistically talented, but he's a very talented writer. And I love the way he writes dark, because he writes it very unapologetic. He is not sorry about people being jackasses and evil and corrupt. He's not. I mean, he literally takes Santa and makes him the bad guy. Who fucking does that? Brom. Brom does that. And I love it. I love an author who will take what I know and just flip that shit, reverse the script, and then give me a whole new story that I didn't even know existed. But it's completely plausible, because there are two sides to every story, and he's giving me the other fucking side. And I love that. I love the way he's unapologetic about it. I love the way he writes. I love the dark prose he uses. I love, especially in this one, it was almost a Charles Dickinson feel of darkness in the original Christmas Carol. If you've ever read the original Christmas Carol, it's actually kind of a dark fucking book, okay? Like, I've said this before, but let's be honest. Christmas is about a guy who stalks you, watches you, determines if you're good or bad, and rewards you, okay? It's kind of a dark fucking holiday. He breaks into your fucking house, okay? It's kind of a dark holiday. And I like the fact that I finally have a story that kind of mirrors that Charles Dickinson darkness that the Christmas Carol holds. Yes, there's a lot of hope in that story, but there's also a lot of darkness. There's a lot of facing the truth of who you are without the blinders on. And you definitely see this in this book with almost all the characters. And I really had a good time with that. I felt that was awesome. I loved how he used Krampus and Santa as our symbolic representations of old versus new. Krampus represents the Yule, which was the original, I want to say pagan, but I don't want to say that because I'm not 100% sure on that. In this story, he is a Norwegian spirit. He is a descendant of Loki. Loki is his grandfather, and Loki's daughter Hel is his mother. So there's a lot of Norwegian Viking lore mythology entailed here. And then you have Santa, who is the embodiment of the Christianity holiday, taking it, and instead of being Christian based, it's, it's based around the Christian holidays, which were based off of pagan holidays in the first place. It's really convoluted and crazy, but basically all you have to understand is that he uses Krampus and Santa to represent basically good and evil, old versus new. But the fact is that at some point in time, these things do blend. They do cross, and everyone's got a dual side. Everyone's got a good side. Everyone's got a bad side, including Santa, the ultimate jolly, happy-go-lucky guy. Krampus, who is rumored to literally punish children for being bad, puts them in a sack and, sorry, my phone was being dumb, puts them in a sack and beats them with twigs because they don't show, tribute to him. Like, what? But you see Krampus in this story do such beautiful, heartwarming things and very nurturing things and very caring things, and Santa being kind of like a jealous jackass who's kind of a spoiled brat. So I love this. I love this battle between Yule versus Christmas, Santa versus Krampus. I liked this element to the story. I thought it was really unique. I thought it was fun. I liked how we got some history on both sides, and we got to have it formulated and broken down for us, because I don't know a lot about the Krampus tradition. I'm going to be honest, going into this book, I thought Krampus was just more of like a German, European thing. I did not know it was Norwegian. I don't know if that is true with mythology and stuff like that. I haven't gone to research it, but that was really unique to me because it's the only Krampus story I ever read that had that angle, so sure. But I do know a little bit about Krampus, but not as much as I learned from this book, so I don't exactly know how much of it is actually like true mythology and everything, but I really liked the comparison between Yule and Christmas, Santa, and Krampus. I thought it was really cool, and how you got to see both sides of both coins, good and bad on both accounts. I really enjoyed it. There is some political in this book, and I usually hate when authors do this, where they, and okay, sorry, a lot of authors do this. They put their opinions through their characters of like their own political stances, their own viewpoints on society and stuff like that. A lot of books that have been crucial and very structural to the building of our world now are based in this. They use the book to talk about society and what's wrong, what needs to change, things like that. I'm fully aware of that. What I don't like is when authors blatantly do it. Blatantly. Brom didn't blatantly do it, but he did do it. But he did it with Christmas. He did it with the commercialization of Christmas. He did it through Krampus saying it's not about the spirit of giving anymore. It's about what you have versus what you don't have. And we're destroying our Earth to do this. Because there's a very clear scene where Krampus is flying in his sleigh with goats. A lot of goats. By the way, goats are assholes, apparently. Apparently they're jackasses. I don't know. My daughter bitches about goats all the time. Her cousin has goats, and she has to help her with them, and she bitches about them all the time. Because goats. Man, apparently they're assholes, and they try to kill themselves when they're trying to get groomed. I don't know. It's weird. Weird stories, man. But anyway, there's this clear scene where Krampus is flying, and there's this big gorge cut out from people clearing like forests in a mountaintop. And it's a very small scene, but it's a very poignant scene because the conversation that happens after Krampus talking about, we are killing our Mother Earth to be more stuff orientated. This isn't how this works. We can't kill this to have more. This is the more. And you're not understanding that. And I really enjoy that scene was in there because it is something that's prevalent in our world today. But it wasn't so forced down your throat that it became a political book. So I enjoyed his balance with that. Because normally if it becomes very preachy, I don't like it. Because I'm preachy. Let's just be honest. I have soapboxes. I sit on them. And some people like it, some people don't. It is what it is. But I don't like it when authors do it. But I do know almost all authors tend to do it, but it's the balance that they have. And he has a very, very good balance with this. And I wanted to stress that. So if you're not looking, if you think that this book is going to, when I say it's commentary on society, and the commercialism and holidays, it's not focused on that, but the parts that he uses it's a nice balance between that and then this fictional, fantastical element that really just sucks you in with the story. So I like his balance. I like his style of writing, the way he writes within this kind of world. It's a very touchy area, and he handles it very, very well. And I really enjoyed that. Also, I like the fact that this guy takes shit and turns it on its head. I love that shit. Okay? I love it. I have already said this. I like when you take something I know and you flip it and you give me a whole nother fucking story. I love it. It's one reason why I barreled my way through fucking Wicked. Okay? The book Wicked. It's one reason I barreled through it, because it's exactly what it fucking does. It takes everything you think you know about Wizard of Oz and says, fuck you. This is the truth. Thanks for playing. So I really enjoyed that. It was fun. It kept me engaged in the story. It kept me like, what? And I was calling people and saying, hey, did you know this? Like, what is this? It had me researching, and I love an author that makes me want to research things. So I thoroughly enjoyed that element of this book a lot. And I was not disappointed with that. I was not disappointed in that at all, because I knew that was going to happen. That's a trope. That's a thing that Brom does. In the 2 books I've read, it's been very clear that this is what he does. And it was excellent. It was excellent. It was executed great. I loved it. Had a great time with it. Kept the story moving. Kept it fun. Kept it energetic. Kept it a little dark. And definitely made me look at Santa in just a different light. All right? Did. So, however, there were some things that didn't work. There were some characters that I think needed more fleshed out. And I think it would have just strengthened certain areas of this story, specifically Whippy, Nippy, and Makwa. They are some of the servants of Krampus, and they are an indigenous service. They are a freely chosen They chose to follow Krampus, and they're like 100,000 years old. Okay, and I just kind of wanted more from them because they were willing participants. They willingly wanted to serve Krampus. It wasn't forced upon them. It wasn't because they were dying. They willingly went into the service, and I really wanted more of that kind of element, because there are people that still practice Yule, who still participate in it, and it would have been nice to kind of see someone who willingly still wants to do Yule, who doesn't have to be forced into the Yule aspect of Krampus from growing up with Christmas. Because we have R2 that had dealt with Christmas, and then it has to be changed to Yule, and then these people are already in Yule. So I really wanted more fleshing out from them. Also, I really wanted more from Linda and Jesse's backstory. There was a few scenes of them together, and because Jesse was doing all of this to get his family back, I really wanted to see what he had lost. We saw very small windows of him with Linda and him with his daughter, and I really wish we would have seen more of that, because it would have strengthened his decisions and his actions a hell of a lot more. Now, also, Jesse's kind of an emotional dude, so he was basically going off emotion, but there was a point where he was logically trying to argue this, and it would have been nice to have some of that backstory of that to kind of justify some of that logic. So that would have been nice. And the Boggs boys, they are the connected boys that end up hurting Jesse, but then end up having to work with Jesse. And I wanted more from them because they were a catalyst. They were definitely a threat to Jesse and a threat to the chief of police, but they were an integral part of it because they were involved in everything. And I really wish we'd gotten more from them prior to Jesse, and then maybe a little bit more. I just wanted more fleshing out of those characters. I felt it would have strengthened some of the storylines involving them, because I don't want to say they're throwaway characters, because they're not, but they served a very minor purpose, and I kind of wish they would have served a bigger purpose, because it felt like everybody else in this book had a major point, had a major purpose, had an arc and a story of their own, and I really wanted to know more of that story. It just wasn't long enough for me. This is something that this is more my personal thing. So, like I said, I don't know a lot about the tradition of Krampus. Going into this, all I knew was that he collected children that were bad. Instead of Santa leaving coal, he would actually take the children. And I've heard stories where he eats them. I've heard stories where he beats them. I've heard stories where they lock him in like this little snow globe thingy. They just take children. Krampus just takes children that are bad. I didn't know anything about tribute. I didn't know anything about that. But what I noticed in this book is when Krampus is going through and trying to reinstigate the tradition of Yule, he's just focusing on the kids, not the parents. The parents get this sleeping dust just thrown in their face, and they get put to sleep. He tries to focus on the children, which I get because, they're like little sponges and they just absorb stuff, and they're the easier victims. But it's not their fault they don't know anything about Yule. It's their parents. So why threaten to punish the kids, a 6-year-old, for not putting tribute out the next year when they're 6? Why don't they do it? Why don't he convince the parents? I just didn't understand that. I just didn't get that part. And maybe that's just because I was reading too much into it, but that was just kind of irritating. It's well, the parents are the reason that they're not celebrating it, so why don't you just say, are you being mean to the kids? Be mean to those jackasses, because they're the ones that aren't doing what you want them to do. And it just didn't jive with me. It was weird. Also, the other thing about this book is I wanted this darker. I remember Slewfoot being a hell of a lot darker, and I feel like this should have been darker, based off of fucking who it's about. I mean, it's Krampus. So I wanted this darker. Yes, we do get blood, we get guts, we get gore, we get beheadings, we get burnings, we get cursing. don't get me wrong, this is a dark book. I just feel like it could have been darker. Like, I feel like Brom almost held back a little bit because it's holiday. You don't have to do that. You don't. Give it, just bring it. There are people out here that can tolerate it. So give it to us. When we, like, there are dark people out here that like this. So, I gave this 3 stars. It was strong. I'm glad I read it. It definitely, was an interesting read. It was an interesting way to end the year. Be honest. It's a very interesting way to end the year for sure. So, the next book I worked on this week, and the first book I completed in 2025, was this guy, The Fury by Alex McLedes. This is one of my book of the month projects where I'm trying to read all my backlog book of the months. I'll link my book of the month challenge video here for you guys so you can check it out. But this was the first one that I actually picked this one from the board game that I played. I didn't draw it randomly. I picked this one because it's the one that sounded the most interesting to me of the January ones. And this is a murder mystery thriller. We have murder, revenge, isolated island, and we do feature cheating in this book, just so you are aware. So, quick summary. We follow our narrator, who will later be introduced into the story. He is relaying a story about a murdered Hollywood starlet named Lana Ferrara. And through a fourth wall break telling of this story, we are revealed the murder layer by layer, and then the why of the murder layer by layer, and then the real story of the real murder layer by layer by layer, all through fourth wall telling, guys. It was a good time. What worked? The fourth wall break. Loved it. I love a fourth wall break. I love when authors do this with narrators. I think it's great, especially when they get involved. If you're hearing that, that's my husband's alarm. So, but I loved it. It was so well done. I had such a good time with that. Like, the jumping back and forth between timelines and narrator timeline versus telling the story timeline, thought it was great. That storyline jumping was another aspect that I really enjoyed in this, because it was told like somebody's telling a story. If you've ever had somebody come up to you and they have this big, long, convoluted story they're telling you, they're going to tell you like the initial hook. And they're like, hold up, wait, backtrack a couple weeks because you got to understand this conversation to understand this next piece. And then they go in. At least that's how I tell stories. Maybe that's why people don't like listening to my stories, because I backtrack a lot and I talk around in circles. But eventually I get to the damn point. So this story was really reminiscent of how I tell stories, and I like that. I thought it was cool. It allowed for some really nice reveals and some nice like drop moments that kind of came out of the blue. And I was like, oh, all right, we're going this way. Thanks. That's fantastic. I like it. I like it. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. And the other beautiful thing about the storyline jumping element is that you could literally take any of these stories or these acts, because the narrator is narrating this like he's reading a play. It's not written in play format, so it's not like dialogue, but it has acts breaking up. So you have your act 1, act 2, act 3, and you can take any events in these acts and move them around. Like if you were to take every single event in this book and put it on a postcard or a post-it note on a image board, you could move it any way, and eventually you would get the same story, but you could rework it in any convoluted which way you wanted based off the story he created. So it was definitely really cool, very reminiscent of like Quentin Tarantino films. Like if you ever watch Quentin Tarantino film, like you see that murder at the very beginning and then it's like backtracking the entire way. It's very reminiscent of that. And I thought it was really, really cool that he had a playwright style with that, because I've seen films like that. So I thought that was really cool of that element. I thoroughly enjoyed that element a lot. I could see where it would get annoying to people because it's like, hey, just tell the fucking story already. I don't need this shit, but I like all that shit, so I enjoyed that element. There were some things in this, though, that didn't work. There is an obvious trajectory to the story. Once you get the murder, it's very, very clear the route he's going. It's very clear, and I've seen it before. I've seen it. And I think you're supposed to feel that way, because it's not really a bomb drop. It's not really like out of nowhere. It's very much led up to that this is what's going to happen, because this story is not so much about who got murdered. It's the why. the why is the reason that we're really like digging layer by layer to figure out. But I think this author had the chops to go a different route. So when we went the obvious trajectory, everything after it felt really elongated, like he was trying to backtrack and say, oh, I'm going to do something really cool here because I chose the obvious route. So now I got to do a big, huge twist here. Well, it was just like twist on top of twist on top of twist. And it just got annoying. It's like, why didn't you just do this in the first place? No. Now it feels like you're trying to do a major drum bop and it's not working. Because where you need the major drum bop, you picked an obvious trajectory. And it just didn't work. So it kind of, the ending felt a little bogged down and it wasn't supposed to. It wasn't supposed to be. That was when the big crucial moment happened and everything. And it's not supposed to feel kind of weighted down, and it does because you pick this route to go on. Is it wrong? No. Was the story still good? Sure. Yeah, it was great. But it just felt a little overdone at the end because you had to overcompensate for choosing an obvious choice. So that was annoying. I felt like some of these characters needed more development to justify their actions at the end of the story. Jason in particular, he is our Hollywood starlet's husband. And at the end of the story, he just kind of sits there, like, does nothing. And I'm just like, what? Like, everything we've gotten up to this point, and the author even says this, has a narrator say this, that we don't have a good idea of who he is because it's a skewed vision of him based off this narrative, which I do appreciate that immensely. I thought that was a really cool element that they used, because the narrator does this quite a lot, where he brings up Agatha Christie, because there's a little like reminiscent of Death of the Nile in this, like it almost rip off, almost, but then he does something else with it, which was kind of cool. And he acknowledges Agatha Christie in this and everything. So I thought that was dope. But like her character, Jason, he just kind of just flounders at the end. You're like, you were supposed to be the pinnacle. Like, you were supposed to be the guy. And now you're fuck all nothing. No one gives a shit about you. But all of this is because you walked into the fucking picture at the wrong goddamn time. But we're not going to focus on you anymore. Like, what? You just let me hanging. And the character of Nikos, like, how? Why is he fucking important? He's on the island and he lives there. He doesn't have anything to do with this woman. But all of a sudden he's madly in love with her? Huh? What? More backstory. I need more development on some of these characters. I really, really did. I needed more of their connection to our main character and why. More than what we got, because we got some, but I needed more. I needed more to justify half that shit at the end. Now, Kate and Lana and Leo, fuck yeah. Completely got their whole trajectory. Got it. Understood. Don't necessarily agree with it, but I got it. Totally got it. I needed the rest of them because all those other characters were major players in that final ending scene, and I didn't really understand. Well, I did understand why they were there, but they didn't have a stake in it anymore. The stake had been taken away, and you built this whole book around these guys, and you're like, nope, fuck off. We don't need you anymore. Okay. What am I supposed to do with these people? That was annoying. There is no spice rating in this book. Yes, there is cheating on page because they're talking about infidelity, but you don't actually see anything. Like there's a kiss here, hand holding there. Like there's no spice. It's a murder mystery thriller. Good fucking time though. Good fucking time. Liked the symbolism of the fury element. So, you know, when I was reading this book, it reminded me of Shakespeare's line, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." Yeah, took that line, flipped it on its head, and gave it to a dude. Because they're just as brutal. When you fuck over a guy, he's just as dramatic and just as fucking crazy. And if not more, I mean, he wrote a whole fucking story about it. So, yeah, I had a really good time with this one. I gave it 3 stars. It was a good way to start the year. I was hoping for more. This was going on a trajectory of like a 4. And I thought, ooh, if he does something really cool, it's going to be a 5. but he didn't. He took the obvious, dropped it to a 4, and then that ending just kind of bogged it down, which brought it to a 3 for me. So I really wish I could have given this a higher score, but I do plan on continuing with this author. I have one other book of theirs on this Book of the Month challenge, The Maidens, so I don't know when I'm going to be getting that, but I definitely look forward to it. And then I also would like to go pick up The Silent Patient, which he wrote and was turned into a film, which I have not seen. I don't think I've seen it. If I have, I don't remember it. But yeah, so definitely this guy's on my radar. 3 stars. Nice way to start the year off. Okay, let's just be honest. It is. And the other book I started, this was actually the first book I started of the year. I started this on January 1st, and that is North is the Night by Emily Rath. This is the book that I chose to read, the very first book of the month to read of 2025, but I drew out of my reading habits challenge, which I'll link my reading goals video here where I talk about my reading habits challenge that I'm doing. I drew to read a book entirely outside. It's January in the Midwest. And currently, right now, I believe the temperature is, well, it's snowing and it's sticking. So it's down there. It's probably in single digits, maybe. I'm not quite for sure. Haven't been outside. But there's about a solid, I don't know. I'm looking at the window right now. Actually, I'll just put a picture of what my backyard looks like right here. You can just, that's my deck. So I don't know when I'm going to finish this book because I have to read it entirely outside. So I might have to skew this challenge to maybe like read it in my car or read it, you know, outside some other area. I don't know. But this is Vikings, and it has a glossary in it that I can't pronounce half the fucking names. So that's fun. So not only will I be cold, but I can't pronounce half the names. But I'm still excited about continuing with it. So hopefully I'll have more to talk about it in my next weekly wrap up. But I don't know because there's this outside right now. So we don't know. I might have to tweak this reading habit challenge, which I don't want to do. I don't want to do that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But that is my week 1 in 2025 of my reading, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and stay warm if you are in an area where it's cold. Don't be crazy and read an entire book entirely outside like I am. That's fine. But I will see you guys all soon with another video. Bye, guys.